This pile of Amazon crap contains about as cheap a gaming PC as you can build yourself using Amazon without really licking up Bezos' skid marks. And by that I mean scraping the bottom of the barrel, I guess. Anyway, let's see what we got. In terms of case, we get the quite nice Mcube by Deepcool, which is a successor to the infamous Ebola case. And it was on sale for about 55 Canadian drachmi, which is a steal for what it is. Also making it the cheapest case I could find, which is pretty cool. Now the storage that's going to be contributing to Bezos' next trip into space via penis is this A58? It's a 256 gig SSD which cost a surprisingly small amount. Storage on the bottom end has gotten pretty cheap. On that note, this 16 gigs of X-Power gaming turbine RAM was also surprisingly cheap for 3200 MHz DDR4. I'm pretty excited that we could get a reasonable RAM configuration, especially considering the rest of the system. APU-wise, which means this is our CPU and our graphics card, because, you know, cheapest-ish, we're using the AMD Ryzen 5 4600G, which seems like it has a pretty beefy CPU section with 6 cores and 12 threads. And at 140 Canadian drachmi for the CPU and graphics card, that sounds like a bit of a deal to me, assuming the performance isn't horrendous. Power supply wise, I don't think this is necessarily an IED, but its box does date it quite well with this Haswell ready branding on it. So either Thermaltake is super lazy about updating its packaging, or this has been sitting in a warehouse for the last 17 eons. Let's hope it's the Thermaltake being lazy then. And then finally, motherboard wise, I'm using this MSI B550M Pro Wi-Fi. And the total price of all of these components, before tax for some reason, is $357 US. Looking back, if we really wanted to cheap out, we could have gotten 8 gigs of RAM instead, and this A520 motherboard, saving us $30 US. However, the A520 board wasn't available when I ordered these parts, and in terms of the single 8 gig stick, no one wants to skid mark lick that hard. And with that beautiful imagery, let's put the system together and see how it runs. First, let's check out the why is it so sticky? Now, aside from the weird excretion on it, this is a surprisingly nice looking motherboard considering the price point. Not only do we get a bit of heatsink on the power delivery, we even get some post LEDs, features that are normally reserved only for the landed gentry. And the I/O isn't too bad either. Look at that, we've even got Wi-Fi. Although the rear I/O shield is straight out of 1998 Garbage Town. Aside from the 6 cores of glory, the 4600G also has a Vega 7i GPU in it, which should give us reasonable gaming performance. I'm excited to see how that works out. Now, I went out of my way to get some blue RAM so that we have just a splash of color in this build, you know? Oh no, it's one of those terrible, impossible to open plastic clamshell things. Oh, this is like the kind of packaging that like staplers come in. Oh, I hate it. Although it actually doesn't work too terribly for RAM, because you can just kind of pull it out like that. You just gotta love some X-Power gaming turbine action. Oh, it's our old friend the Wraith Stealth Cooler. The cooler the Intel stock cooler wishes to become when it grows up. Oh, I actually can't remember which way around was considered the correct way to mount it. I think this is, but if you're offended by this mounting orientation, then, good. Ooh, that's quite a nice looking base for a system, which I'm not gonna test before dropping in the case like a real badass. And by that I mean dumbass. And there is our Cube, which is quite a nifty case, and I'm surprised I could get it for as little as I did. Now the front may be restrictive enough for even the most adventurous hypoxophilia enjoyer, but it's a pretty low-powered system. And there is a bunch of ventilation in other places that makes up for it. But before we start packing stuff in there, let's unsheath the power supply. I don't know how safe I'm supposed to feel with this power supply, but at least it's not as light as a quail egg, which, you know, is a reasonable sign, I guess. Ooh, this power supply is not modular, and it comes with one hell of a cable clump that we're gonna have to hide in our little MATX case. So hopefully that's not too hard to do. It comes with a Molex fan, which is pretty disgusting. And this is quite an inconvenient side to have the connector. So I'm gonna flip the fan so that I can more easily cable route that gross Molex connector through here so that we don't need to ever see it again. Ew. And just like that, we've got a much cleaner cable run. Nice, the standoffs have these little lips which catch the motherboard and keep them in place. A lot of times in budget cases, they just have smooth standoffs, and then it's harder to accurately mount the motherboard, so good job. Nice, looking good. All we need to do now is plug all the ugly cables in, cable manage it, and then we can install Windows and finally run some games on it. Oh, and I almost forgot the SSD. We also need to mount that in somewhere. That's cool, just kind of sticks in there. Let's see how much elbow grease it takes to get the rear side panel on. Oh. So now we've gotten to the part of the video where I'm going to do a bit of a glamour sequence so you all can jealously admire my mad PC building skills, and then we'll see how it runs. Although, before I get ahead of myself being all arrogant about it, we should probably see if it fires up. So let's see if it works. There we go, it's posted. At which point I enabled XMPs to make full use of our RAM and installed Windows, after which we could unleash the fury of the beast. Now with GTA 5 running at 1080p normal settings, which is like low, we're getting about 60 frames per second. At 1080p on a $100 iGPU, that's not bad at all. Granted, it is low settings on a 300-year-old game, so on the grand scheme of things it's not spectacular, but for an iGPU this is pretty good. We also have CPU headroom in spades. So later in the video I'll drop a dedicated graphics card in here, which should make a huge difference. Aside from that, the little Wraith stealth cooler is doing a great job. The temperatures are very good. The performance of this little system is miles ahead of the NAS in the previous video, which cost more than this, but that is a NAS. Wow, so CSGO with 1080p competitive settings, this is a significantly better result than NAS gaming. And this is a usable CSGO result. Like, you can play some casual online gaming like this. It's smooth, there isn't a bunch of input lag. Like, yeah, this is a usable CSGO result. Which obviously doesn't make me a better gamer. Okay, well, when it comes to Battlefield 5 wait, what settings am I using? Did I just default it to high like I defaulted it to high like a Papega. Okay, that makes a lot of sense as to why it was running that poorly. Yeah, even at low, Battlefield isn't going great. We are getting about 40 frames per second, but it feels like we're gaming in heavy treacle. But it is running quite a bit better than I was expecting. Like the iGPU in this 4600G is no slouch. Missed everything. Oh, louder. Luckily, they also missed everything, so that helps. Oof. Okay, at 1080p low settings, we are getting under 20 frames per second with Cyberpunk, which I don't think is massively unexpected, considering that we do have an iGPU in here that we're using. Luckily, we do have a very powerful tool available to us in Cyberpunk, which is super resolution, quality, and see how much that helps. Oh, we briefly hit 24 frames per second there, which is still not great. Let's try some more FSR. Performance. So this is about double what we were getting without FSR on. It doesn't look amazing. I don't think it's gonna capture on camera very well, but we've got a lot of pretty weird visual artifacts going on, but we could always make it look worse. Ultra performance. Now with ultra performance, we are getting above 30 frames per second, but wow, does it look terrible. It doesn't look just like we have Vaseline rubbed into our eyes. It looks like our eyes are Vaseline. It is brutal. But again, we can always make it look worse. Let's drop the resolution to 720p with ultra performance FSR. Oh yes, there we go. We have 50 frames per second happening, and it feels okay. There is a little bit of input lag, but it feels reasonable. However, visually, it kind of looks like the gameplay is being censored. I don't know, this is some properly terrible looking gameplay, but it doesn't matter, at least we're getting a playable result, you know? On that note, let's drop a graphics card into the system to really step up the gaming performance. In terms of graphics card, I decided to go with this RX 6600 because you can get them used on eBay for a reasonable amount under 300 Canadian drachmi, which, considering how wild new GPU prices are on the lower end these days, this seems like a pretty good bet to me. Oh no, terrible breakout PCIe slot covers, we meet again. Oh, I hate that so bad. With GTA 5, I had to step up the settings to 1080p high so that we didn't run into the stutter zone, and we're still getting more than double the frame rate. So unsurprisingly, the dedicated graphics card made a big difference. Now again with Battlefield 5, I took the settings from 1080p low to 1080p high, and we're getting a very good gaming experience here. It's made such a big difference. But what I find the most interesting about this performance is that the 6600 seems to be pretty much maxing out what this 4600G can keep up with in terms of gaming GPU. So there wouldn't be much of a point spending any more money on a graphics card than this, at least at 1080p. And then finally, when it comes to Cyberpunk, I don't know. I think it may have made a little bit of a difference dropping a graphics card in here. It seems to just be running slightly better. Which brings me to the end of another video. Yes, it's the end. Bye.